Hey guys, welcome to another episode of All Bass Creations. Effects, tutorials, demos, and review. This is another episode of Ambient Bass Synth Afternoons. So what we'll be doing here today, just going through a few different sounds and using them. So we have the, let's switch over to pedal board view here. Bam. So we're only using these pedals here. All these pedals are just stored there. But so we'll be going through how to really get into some different ambient effects, some synth stuff, and just really hanging out, creating some new sounds. So let's start with what we had going on there. That's actually a combination of the Empress compressor running into the deep freeze, the Mel 9 into the Enzo X, then the Mercury X. So that's pretty much the sound we're looking at the moment. So we'll peel some of those layers back. Right, so that's where I'm starting with the Empress compressor. Into the deep freeze. So that already gets you in that territory straight away, just adding something like the deep freeze to your setup. And as you can see, it doesn't take up much space at all. Super tiny footprint. These and the Tonix ones are amazing for the size that they are. Then you have the Mel 9, which is on the orchestra setting. Got that running into the Enzo X, which is running a ring mod effect on there, and it's an envelope triggered ring mod. So when I play, you can hear it going back in the background there. Throw on the Mercury X, which is doing a lot of the magic here. It's actually doing some pitch shifting. It's got the vowel modulation on it and some preamp stuff, along with the amazing delays and reverbs that you can create in there. So all that together, along with the deep freeze and the Mercury X having freeze functions, I can choose to freeze them in different ways. So freeze the Mercury X. Deep freeze. And so there I'm just getting massive layers of things. Hope that's not clipping. Feel free to ask questions as well, that's what we're here for. Definitely appreciate y'all chiming in. Make sure you hit that like button wherever you are, of course. So that's one way of getting like an orchestral type of sound. Along with a choir. It's like an orchestral choir sound. With a little bit of craziness, chaos thrown in there. And just so you can hear, this is the the Mercury X by itself. It's a little louder. Bring this down. PX is just a Swiss Army knife for the end of your chain. You know, even if you already have freeze pedals, like the POG 3 also does freeze gliss, but you know, having that additional freeze at the end allows me to freeze there, and then I can do additional layers underneath, you know, compared to if you get a bunch of pedals that, you know, don't have all these different features. You know, like that's one thing I love about electroharmonics pedals is that freeze gliss function. You know, same thing's available on, there's also a freeze function on the electroharmonics V256 as well. So you got tons of options, just, you know, adding a few little electroharmonics pedals. Well, this one's not little, but this is little compared to its the previous version, the or like they took the Hog 2 and the POG 2 and made the POG 3, you know. So Hog 2 is a lot bigger than this POG 3 is. You could do something like that with the POG 3. The POG 3 does this like little split thing. Goes in the fourths. So, you know, you can get those fourths in there, and that's one of my favorite effects on a lot of these different pedals. Fourths, fifths. I think I got fifths right here. And I can morph anywhere in between there. Of course, you can tailor this to do different things, but, you know, one of the biggest things is that warp function on the POG 3. So having little stuff like that when your imagination is ready, you know, having, I know for some people it seems like the POG 3 might be overkill, right? And for some players it actually might be overkill just because it is so much packed into this octaver pedal here. So let's explore that a little bit today, get into that a bit. You know, we've been into the synth pedals. We'll get into the synth pedals too. But for the most part, one of the things I really love about the POG 3 is, let's see what we got here. of course, you all know you could do octaves up, octaves down, but you can get nice chorus effect. And then based on where I have the expression pedal, it will give me a different amount. So simply by detuning a bit. So I also love this octaver, and as you can see, it's super heavy. Let's bring that volume down. So even so the way you get to something like that, because I know some people was having trouble getting to some sounds with the POG 3, and a lot of times it can if you don't know what you're looking at or what all the functions are, you can get overwhelmed with so many features for an octave pedal, especially if you're used to something more simple like the micro POG or, you know, even the OC5. You know, you're like, what am I going to do with all these octaves and filter and stuff? Okay, let's start there. Start with what everybody likes, a nice little octave down sound, right? So the key to the let me undo a lot of this stuff. Bam, 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 bam. I'm just undoing stuff right now. Take all the spread off. Definitely want the octave down in the middle. I'm keeping the gain low, because the more you push it, the more of a saw type of wave you get. Right, we're not really looking for that. We want something more in that range. And one of the biggest things with the POG 3 people don't realize is the sound you have going into it greatly matters. Like it. So if I take all the bass out my signal, the octave won't have any bass. If I boost the bass, it'll have more bass. Same thing with the mid range. Right, or same highs. So, you know, you want to have a nice, in other words, you want to have a nice tone with your bass, figured out with that octave down. So starting from there, something like that, you can now start shaping the filter. You want to add some resonance. You don't want it too far down, but you just want it nice darker tone. Get you a nice octave down. That way, you can also bring in your dry signal. If you want the dry sound to go through the filter, just press dry. Now, what I will say is you might want to let it. If you want it to dip below this filter cutoff, right? Going into the left, and it will dip and then come back up. And that can be the time of the attack and decay of the filter can be controlled by simply holding down this dry button here under the filter section. You can change the type of filter. You can also change this time. So say I wanted it to take a longer time to to attack. In this case, we're going down. Let's go up. And we can also make that shorter, of course. That's where you get those real lasery type of sounds. If you want some more of the filter interaction, you can push this input gain. Then it's going to give you that crunchier texture. If that's the sound you were looking for, that's really a short attack time. So that easily gives you a little bit of overdrive or distortion. You can also run some into it if you would like. Now say you wanted some upper voices. So if you wanted more of that octave, if you want to open that filter up some more. Now you don't have to have filter modulate at all. Just put this down bottom like that. Just take your straight sub bass layer. Use your input signal. This is what it sounds like. Might go with some distortion. Yeah, let's do that. Right, so we can take something like that. So if we don't want the dry signal, right? Change that decay, make that decay longer. But of course, you don't have to run overdrive into it. You already got your sub octave right there. That's all you really needed. Now, if you want to go for more of an octave up sound, depends on how bright you want it. If you're going to do chords, take that focus off. If you need of course, just changing the sound of your EQ of your bass will make a complete difference. So you really got some really good options here. So you don't want that fade in, that octave to be so aggressive. Have it fade in if you wanted to, versus if you wanted it to react immediately. You can have that in, sound fade in. Works great for pad type stuff. Come over to the expression pedal. It's already on freeze list. Look how easy you went from just regular old bass guitar. Just two pedals. Two. Then two. because you're already playing a string instrument, right? So you're not too far off from string sound. So having something like the Pog 3 and the Mercury X and combining those two freeze functions and octave effects, right? So not only do I have all these octaves here, I got octaves going on the Mercury X as well. All right, and I can freeze that. So so combining those, two features on both of those devices gives me a lot of extra freedom. If I wanted to, I could come down to the deep freeze and have 3 different freeze functions available to me. So we're going to use the Mercury X to freeze the bottom layer. So we just go with a B flat major 7, right? I'm going to make that layer 2 long. So all of that with just combining 3 different freeze functions along with 2 different octave functions, some delay, reverb, and filters in there from the Mercury X, along with some modulation going on in there as well. So yes, it could seem like a Pog 3 would be overkill, or having a Pog 3 and a deep freeze would be overkill. But in actual reality, it depends on your creativity and what you feel is where you want to take your music. So one of the biggest features that gets overlooked is that freeze function in a lot of these, and how you can combine them. We talk about them individually, but a lot of times not together. So, and all that's without actually getting into any actual synth there. That's literally taking my bass signal and turning it into that type of sound. So, you don't always have to just run straight to the synth pedals to get sound. Sometimes it really is good to not forget about the ways you can transform your actual bass sound, because it is different than the oscillators you would get in these pedals, right? So, yes, I can do string sounds and things like that on the Enzo X. But that's a completely different texture than doing it on here. Let's see, where am I? Let's keep it So, having octavers are really amazing when you think about it, especially something like a POG 3, how fast it is. It's always in polyphonic mode because it doesn't need the monophonic mode because you have the filtering, right? A lot of those smaller octave pedals, you need all these other pedals to go with them. The reason why something like a POG 3 will have that type of price tag is simply because it has digital storage. You can edit it completely on the computer. It has a ridiculous amount of octaves. It's still less than the Hog 2, but you get, an attack pedal. You get a filter. You get detune. You also get a spread, which is like pretty much like a delay, a small delay. So say I had these octaves up, right? First octave. The fact that you can get all that in one take and you don't have to layer it, and you can do that live. You can just save that and do it live. It's a really nice feature. Of course, if I wanted to bring that down, add some detune. Another little nice thing you can do with the filter. Come here, give it a quick attack. Throw that into a nice Compression. And this is just the Pog 3 doing all this effect. Without it, effect. What is that? 5 and 55. So now I'm just taking advantage of that envelope. Almost getting like that synth, like a synth keyboard type sound. Now, say I didn't want it that spread. Now I can change the sensitivity of that trigger as well. Say I don't want it to trigger every time. Turn the sensitivity down. So then you start to get musical with your dynamics, because you're not just triggering it every single time. So it allows you to do little neat stuff like that. You know, this is crazy. It's not something you're going to use all the time, but that is something you can use at some point. I wouldn't suggest going crazy with the spread too much, because it does, again, what it's doing is adding a delay between the left and the right channel, and increasing that the further you go. So now I will say, sometimes having the stereo aspect when you're running bass sounds kind of, may or may not help all the time, and that stereo spread definitely doesn't always help. But, these are options that you have available to you. Changing the filter, the trigger, sensitivity of the filter, attack and decay. If I wanted to make that more resonant. I can do that as well. You got your detune right there. If you want the detune to run on the dry signal, or any of the effects, the attack, the dry, or the detune, you just press the button underneath that says dry, and it'll add it to that signal path. So, you got the option to pan things. You got these filters, the chorus, attack pedal, and you get a freeze pedal, whammy style effects as well. So if I wanted to set up a whammy style effect, gotta come over here, go to expression pedal, change that to warp. Bring that back center. So you got even your whammy style effects that are available polyphonically as well. So that's set up through the octave up fader here. If you use the regular dry signal, it's not going to affect it. As a matter of fact, if you wanted the freeze function to work, you have to make sure that this focus button is on, and your dry signal needs to run through this attack fader, and you need to have it above, I believe, 10% or something like that. But essentially, you know, that's what you would be looking at there. You can set that up octave, 2 octaves up, fifth. So you really get some cool effects from it. Yeah, I would definitely go, you know, I do those whammy pedals, you know, sound good, but I really do like this Pog 3. And, you know, like you said, those the whammy pedals ain't cheap either. So how much let me see what the whammy pedals are running for. Yeah, those are, I'm seeing them for 400, 319. Yeah, even the whammy hammer on is 250. Boss XS 100 poly shifter, that's 350. You know, and none of them are going to give you all of these options that the Pog 3 will give you, along with all the presets. You know what I'm saying? Like you can also, it's also fully MIDI capable, and as a bonus feature, you can use it as an organ. Let me get my. Oh, it's on channel 1. That's the Pog 3, along with the Enzo X and Mercury X. So Pog 3 by itself, Pog 3 by itself. You can play it with MIDI as well. It's not a bad organ sound. Mind you, that's just that. You can change it. Or come on now. Come on now, that's amazing. Not only that, you hit this detune. If you don't have like a separate Leslie pedal. You can spread it. All that's within, all this is just a Pog 3. That's maximum spread. Now say I didn't want that, I wanted that filter to go one way. Say I just wanted it to go sweep down, right? I can do two things. If I wanted it to make it happen from the right side, I would turn the attack all the way to 0 of the filter. Let's see. Filter settings. Just turn that all the way to 0. Now, this is the bottom, the depth of the filter, how far it's going to go down. And you just change that. Change the sensitivity of that. Wonder if I can set it to not always trigger, but almost like with the percussion on the organ. I do like using the Enzo X for chorus and the Mercury X for like the tremolo effect, which is acting as my Leslie. Some saturation. So the filter greatly shapes that sound. Look how bright that got. So if you wanted more of a mellow pad, if you just wanted a full on. Of course, you can spread that out. Crazy like this really. Let's bring these higher voices down. Let's pair that with that. That. I mean, come on, like that's for this to be an octave pedal. That is, they didn't have to go that whole extra step to add an organ module in there, but it was already right there. Hold on one second. Jay, why she gotta get out the room? You've been in her room all this time. Why you can't go cool out? Go call mommy and see when she come and get y'all. And you still, even while you have the organ function, you can use the organ function and the octave same time. Two separate things in there. So, having full MIDI control over the POG 3, you can also go in there and use the warp function in conjunction with a sequencer. So if I wanted to send I don't know, does that allow me to send out sequencing messages? I know it'll send out MIDI clock. I'll have to check on that. See if I can use the Enzo X as a sequencer for other MIDI devices, because it does has an arpeggiator in here. It also has a 16-step sequencer in there as well. So I'll have to check on that feature. That would be a nice addition for a firmware update or something, if we can use, if it's not already something we can do, use the Enzo X as a sequencer for, say, the Future Impact or POG 3. All right. So that's a general rundown of the POG 3. I might switch the POG 3 to mono, just because I don't really use that stereo panning too much. And, I don't know. I just feel like it might be even better just to use it in mono for the bass stuff. But you got to try different things out. So make sure y'all hit that like button and check out Patreon for all my presets for these different pedals. I will be coming out with a POG 3 pack as well. So the different sounds you heard me creating and doing with the POG 3 will be available in a preset pack on Patreon, as well as my preset packs for the Future Impact 20, some different bass preamps and bass heads for the Tone X series and pedals. And then we have the Enzo X, Mercury X pack, C4 Synth pack, the Zoom B6, MS60B Plus, and MS70 CDR Plus. All those presets are available on the Patreon, as well as if you want to support the channel for $1, $5 every month. I definitely appreciate y'all that already have signed up for the Patreon and have bought preset packs already. Greatly appreciate you. So like if I could make that pattern, the POG 3 follow that pattern. See, we got on the old looper here. Seeing where we want to go with this. I want to do something else. Like that. I want to do this. Takes a while sometimes. This is one of the reasons I might switch loopers, just so I can. The newer loopers, some of the newer loopers, you can really see what you're doing a lot more than the Jam Man Solo HD I'm using. I do like the Jam Man Solo HD. The sound quality is amazing and all that, but not being able to do everything I want to do is kind of weird. At this point, like they kind of put out the same looper with just better sound. So even that little groove beat there is like a kind of a testament to how flexible the Enzo X is. You know, that entire track was made using the Enzo X. Even the solo sounds were, except for the octave up at the very end, were coming from the Enzo X. So having sometimes things seem, you know, when you're watching these quick YouTube videos that don't really deep dive into pedals, it can feel like some pedals are overpriced, or you don't know why it costs so much. Like you don't know why this octaver costs $600, or why this bass synth pedal costs $600, and everybody's always trying to find out, is it even worth it? You know, even when it comes down to things like the MXR bass synth versus the Future Impact, you know, people trying to figure out what is the greatest value for their money, or what's the best one, because in people's mind, for some reason, there has to be one best one. There really isn't. The Future Impact, MXR bass synth, Enzo X are all totally different things. And the way I always describe it is, think of it as different keyboards. So yes, Roland makes keyboards, Nord, Yamaha, Casio, whoever you want to name. They all make keyboards, right? And you're a lot of times people don't understand that different units like Moog, what's some of the other one? That CS7, FM synth thing I saw that looked really cool. You know, these different things all sound different. They're not the same thing, even if they're called the same thing. You know, so filters. So this synth sounds different than this one, and this one. So they all have their own characteristics that will benefit you in you know, your own way, depending on how you want. You know, I would suggest trying to find out what, or I know it's hard to think of what you haven't thought of already, but try to imagine where you really want to go with your music and things like that. If you got to buy on a super budget like that, you know, where you're like, I can only have one. If you can only have one, you know, you're going to have to weigh your options a lot harder, you know. But if you plan on staying in the music business, doing some records and really utilizing these pedals, not just getting them and fidgeting them, you know, playing with them for a little bit. If you plan on actually using them, none of them are going to be a waste of money, because at the end of the day, they're all going to add value. The same way producers and different things, they have plugins. You go in studios, they'll have a wall full of hardware, you know what I'm saying, that costs a lot more than pedals do. So, you know, some of it is investing in yourself, and some of it is a little bit of treating yourself. But ultimately, it really is about serving your overall musical vision when you're picking out pedals. Like, that's why this is my main board. These things I use in the studio, but I don't typically need them live. But this stuff I need all the time, you know, or access to all the time, to just be flexible with my creativity. I don't want to get to in the middle of a song and then not be able to just pull up a nice little string sound if that's what I want to do, you know. Or do it from my bass, you know. Or, you know, adding things like MIDI to your rig. So sometimes it can be hard to really even understand why you need to spend the extra money on MIDI, right? Because adding MIDI to your pedal board isn't necessarily cheap. If you're factoring in that you got to buy the devices that actually distribute the MIDI, and the devices that can program the MIDI, you know. So, for instance, I have built into the bottom of this board, I have a CME H4 MIDI Pro, which is coming out of the side here, but that allows me pretty much, I use it almost like a MIDI patch bay routing thing. It allows me to filter out certain messages from certain MIDI pedals while still allowing me to also have wireless Bluetooth MIDI. And it allows me to have 2 input and output 5-pin MIDI ports along with the ability to control up to 8 USB devices. And it can be powered through USB or a non-volt port. And I definitely got a few extra ones. I'm using a Canvas Power 15 underneath, and as you can see, it's not 15 pedals right here. So, that's something I can power off of there. And then if I need USB power that I can't reach from the board here, I can take USB power out of that MIDI hub that's built into it. And it looks like this, but a bigger version. So it'll look just like this, but this is a H2 MIDI Pro, and instead of 2 ports, it'll have 4. But that's the main difference. And that one has I bought the additional wireless MIDI chip to install on the H4 MIDI Pro. So that's on there. So that gives pretty much me ability to distribute MIDI throughout my board and wirelessly transmit MIDI, plus have physical MIDI ports and control USB MIDI, all from that one little small device. Then I have that linked to a Graviton M1, and I can do this wirelessly, but for real-time effects, like when you have time-sensitive things, or you want super accuracy, it's better to just throw a MIDI cable in there. So I run a MIDI cable from here to the port. If I need to use this screen off of here, I switch this to wireless. But this is the main command center where I store all my presets, to control the pedal board essentially. So say I press bam, now that shifts, turns. So the pedals that are on MIDI is the MIDI Mercury X, Enzo X, Pog 3, Future Impact V4 VIP. So it automatically turns these 2 units off when I press that button, and turns these 2 units to the actual presets I need. Same thing there with the brass. Switches it over. And thanks to the wireless MIDI capabilities, I have a MIDI captain down here on the floor, as well as the accompanying 10-foot switch controller for the Graviton M1, which is also wireless. So I have the 10-foot switch wirelessly connected to here, and then I have the MIDI captain wirelessly connected to the H4 MIDI Pro underneath the board. Then coming out of here, I have the pedals with running wired MIDI, basically this way. And then I also have this MIDI controller being powered by the H4 MIDI Pro. So I just run a USB cable from here to the board. I don't even need a sustain pedal because I'm using the MIDI captain for sustain and to trigger other effects, like if I want octave jumps, or if I want to change the sustain and attack characteristics, I have that mapped out to a different foot switch versus right. So then I also have things triggered on the actual for a whole bunch of stuff at once, pretty much. So while I'm pretty much on the MIDI captain most of the time hitting 3-foot switches, right? But those 3-foot switches control like 5-6 things at once, and I'm talking about parameters. So they're mapped to different CC messages on different pedals to control it, essentially. So, and that's really flexible, helps me out a lot. It's a roll type sound I created. I can use the MIDI captain as my sustain pedal. that road synth type sound is coming from the Enzo X. Created that with the Enzo X. Run that through the color box running into a Jens Ben Shuttle 9.0 tube head. Getting a little bit of tube action there. So having all this on top definitely makes my life a lot easier when I'm performing. And this touch screen, I can, double tap, change commands, super easy to program, super fast. It's only $150. So you ain't gonna beat that. And the screen replacement is $20 and you could do it yourself. You just take off these 4 screws and they'll tell you how to do it. But and this corresponds to the 10-foot switches down the company 10-foot switch right here. And this thing has an amazing battery life on it too. I've only charged it one time and I've had it for like 5-6 months now. So, but I can change my patches through there to whatever I want them to be. Making most of my pedal board wireless. Like say I just wanted one preamp. So this is a color box tone model. And all these tone models are also available. The preamps, in combination of preamps, all on the Patreon. I can go to the Rode sound, brass, switch pages, go to my solo sounds. And also, when I'm just gigging bass, right? I don't need all that. I got on the first page, I got all my bass effects programmed out. And I have it so it will turn off things like the Future Impact Pog 3 if they're on. Now, if the Deep Freeze Mel 9 are on, I got to turn those off manually. Pretty much the Empress compressor stays on all the time, so I don't have to worry about that. And essentially, like I said, if I use one preamp on here, I don't ever have to touch this, to be honest, just depends, So Deep Freeze, MXR, and the Mel 9 are only real switches I have to touch. I don't have to touch the Future Impact, Pog 3, Enzo X, or the Mercury X when I'm gigging, including the foot switches. I don't have to touch them. If I need to, get to my dry bass sound, that's already right there available. Let me get this a little evened out here. Envelope filter. That's all coming from all my just bass effects are coming from the Enzo X. So the envelope filter, the modulations and all that stuff, with the exception of this other filter, which is this is the Mercury X. Chorus, flanger, phaser. when I want to go to my solo sounds, if I want to go to an octave up, it's no problem to go from here So the key for me is to be able to do it quickly, you know what I'm saying, even octave down. So just the ability, it just takes my mind into creative mode versus trying to get to these sounds. These are sounds that I'm going to use all the time, you know, and if I want to have access to switching pages, I can do all that from the foot bank. If I want to scroll each device, I have that set up on page 4. So if I wanted to scroll through the presets of the POG 3, it's all available right there. If I wanted to scroll through the presets of the Future Impact, same thing. Oh, sorry. I can change Mercury X. Change the Enzo X. And this is a prime example, like when you're creating. If I'm being creative right now, I don't want to have to think about, you know, doing this. You know, I just want to be able to get to stuff and experiment with different combinations of things. And if I need to scroll fast, bam. So, you know, having everything set up in a way where it's easily accessible to you during a live performance, I think is the real key. And it's going to cost you a little bit of extra money. You know, I'm not going to lie to you. You know, CME H4 MIDI Pro, or, you know, you can really, if you're not using like all the extra ports, MIDI ports and stuff, and you just need one of these for each, this will do you fine. Now, it won't have wireless capabilities, but it'll do you fine. If this isn't enough, you can get you the H4 MIDI Pro, and then you're just adding pretty much MIDI access to your board from there. And you can always patch in when you need to. You got extra, if I need to run something else into the board, I can do that. If I want to use USB MIDI, I can do that, like what I'm doing here with the MIDI controller. And I can hook up a hook up a USB hub to the H4 MIDI Pro and run more devices off it, or I can run I think it's like, I believe I can run about 8 MIDI devices off of this as well in terms of the USB. But I know this has USB MIDI as well. You got USB in and out. I mean, yeah. No, not USB in and out. You have MIDI in and out on the side here, full size MIDI ports. You got 2 TRS cables that you can assign to any channels and any parameters. And you get 2 of those, TRS1 and TRS2, which make a huge difference. Hold on one sec. Jay, can you close my door back, please? I don't need that dinosaur on my video. Thank you. Close my door and go away from my door with that dinosaur. Close my door. You still haven't closed the door. No, this door right here. Leave my front door open. Yeah, so essentially adding those extra pieces. So the H4 MIDI Pro, that's probably gonna be about $60. I think that little chip, the wireless chip, if you need the wireless MIDI, is like another I think that's like $30-40. I believe that whole unit was like $100 altogether. This is about a $150. And you don't, if you're not going to be using all those extra ports and stuff and need all this flexibility that I'm using to route other stuff and have access to the board, router, you can just go straight to a Graviton M1. This also has wireless MIDI capabilities built into it, so you don't have to actually buy any extra pieces for that. You can just run this. You can run power up to, if you're using the 9-volt side, you can power USB devices with this and use USB MIDI. So say theoretically, if I was going to do that, I come out of this MIDI out into Mercury X, Enzo X, POG 3, and Future Impact. And when I need it to run this, I would run this off of the USB port in the back there. So I could simplify the MIDI I can do without the H4 MIDI Pro, but I like the stability of it. I like the extra ports. And, now I have 3 MIDI in ports and 3 MIDI out ports. So that also helps out a lot when I want to do different things. Some pedals don't have MIDI out or MIDI through, like the V256. I have to run that at the end of my MIDI chain because it doesn't have a MIDI out. So, after I come out the Future Impact, I go straight into the V256 vocoder, and then I can rock out from there. But, it's absolutely essential that I have the extra ports in case I don't want to run, say I wanted to run a MIDI, across the room. I got options now. I can do it wired. I can take a really long MIDI cable and do it, and I can also take something like these Witty Masters. These run, I believe, about $60, or the Witty Jack or anything like that's Witty, which is wireless MIDI, and transmit across the room to a keyboard that's not even wired to any of this setup. So, mind you, I'm powering this MIDI keyboard, this MIDI controller, off of the H4 MIDI Pro. The H4 MIDI Pro is outputting wireless MIDI over to a motif that's across the room over here, and I use this one in particular, this one I'm holding up, to run into this H2 MIDI Pro and then run MIDI wirelessly to my computer if I want to use main stage or if I want to record in the Logic. So essentially I made my setup so I could just create without any hassle in any way, shape, or form, because that's one of my biggest things. I do not like to be programming when I'm creating. I like to have all these different, that's why I have all these preset packs, because I create a lot of presets in advance. It does a few things. I learn the unit really well, and I also already have a bunch of sounds ready to go versus trying to get to those sounds while I'm creating. You can lose ideas. You can lose, parts of the song that you were about to record. You're trying to remember it because you had to play this part 50 times trying to do that. But, if you can get it all in one shot, with MIDI, and I can have all those presets done. If I need to get to the computer, all I have to do is plug this USB port in, and bam, I'm ready to go. So, and I'm also running that MIDI captain off of a WIDI jack, which is similar to that, but different form. And I've also been able to get some amazing bass synth sounds with the Enzo X. I don't know why nobody really talking about the Enzo X for bass synth. I just don't understand it. It's sickening. Just as sickening as it's more sickening than the MXR bass synth. That's not even in this question. But this is a great pedal. Don't get me wrong. But the tracking of these are on par with each other. I would say the Enzo X is better, way better tracking, because you can do polyphonic and monophonic, not just monophonic. Future Impact tracking just got to update. If you got a Future Impact, make sure you get the V4.5 firmware update. It's going to add FM synth and all that. But and it's going to improve. It's going to add a tracking mode called zero latency. Zero, whatever. But just the sickness you can do. Mind you, you can use all these immediately with your gun. So it's an all-in-one rig. It's gonna get you it's gonna track your bass, and it could be your key bass rig. Bring this up a bit here. Same sounds are available when you play. Even stuff like log drum. It can do FM type sounds as well. Get that FM, and FM is just frequency. You just pretty much modulating one oscillator with another one. So the Enzo X is capable of FM synth as well. you got all types of capabilities with the oh. So just bass synths all day. Just you can do pulse width modulation as well. So just you, I just can't think of too much that a good synth could do that the Enzo X can't. Especially, I can't think of anything in the pedal form that can do everything that the Enzo can do, Enzo X can do, and the level and the sound quality in which it can do it is insane. Let's see. Just smooth bass sounds, you know? What's going on, folks? Appreciate you chiming in. just immediate bass synth nastiness. So, you know, to be honest, the Enzo X is the only one up here that can do everything. Only thing that the Future Impact really, I mean, it does have 4 oscillators, right? So it can do some waveforms and things like that, oscillator wave shapes and things like that that the Enzo X can't. The Enzo X uses 2 oscillators in mono, but in polyphonic, it has 6-note polyphony. So each of those voices has 2 oscillators on it. So really the Enzo X is using a total in polyphony, a total of 12 oscillators. So, you know, that is the difference between the Future Impact V4 VIP. It uses 4 oscillators for one voice, you know, which does come in handy when you want to do like harmonies and different things like that with your synth, with your monophonic synth. But the Enzo X, you know, it can't do that, but it can actually play the harmony. It doesn't need to simulate you doing a chord. You can just do the chord. So, you know, those are two different bags to get into. Not only that, but, you know, the effects in the Enzo X are the highest quality out of all the bass synth stuff. So like for me, I like the filter in there more than those other two, and it's more versatile. I like, you know, the drives in there. The drive in the Enzo X, the drive section is very nice. Use that for a lot of different purposes. It's even got an op amp in there along with the tube and transistor drives. You know, you got 3 different types of filter: ladder, state variable, and twin. So basically ladder is the 24 dB filter, 12 is the state variable, and the twin filter is like a baseball's, but flexible. It's like having a baseball's, but you got all these other parameters that you can alter things with it. So that is a huge bonus. Plus some of the best modulations I've ever heard in my life. So, you know, it's definitely worth the 600 price point. You know, same like the Pog 3 and the Mercury X is same thing. You know, different combination of effects and things like that with no synth engine, but an amazing pre-delay and best reverb algorithms I've ever heard. So yeah, it's MIDI and getting pedals that can handle MIDI as well. Hold on one second, guys. Can be, you know, spend a little bit of money on pedals that got MIDI capabilities. Can be the difference between your rig being like super flexible or just kind of flexible. You know, I really wish like things like the Mel 9 and these 3 had MIDI. You know, I don't really care if the Tonex, there are MIDI solutions out there for it, but I don't really care about that when it comes to the Tonex ones, because all I really need is 3 preamps. I can use this one for bass sounds, pads, chords, all that stuff. I can use this one for same thing, but with a little bit of tube action saturation on it. And then a guitar amp. You know, that's a Marshall. So I don't really need more than that. You know, sometimes restricting yourself gives you, because you got to remember, this is my live rig. So I don't want to confuse myself while I'm live and, you know, too much stuff. That's why I have everything. I started using something with a screen so I can name my presets of these, not just have them on here as like the MIDI captain. I couldn't name them. I couldn't see them. You know, it was a little bit more cumbersome to try to program the MIDI captain versus this was a breeze. This was literally what program change, you know, number do I need for each one, and then what CC messages do I need to control certain parameters or the physical foot switches, you know, wirelessly with the MIDI controllers. So that took a while. But MIDI's definitely, it can be a little confusing, but I definitely would recommend that you start to incorporate that into your rig and not worry so much about having all the analog pedals and filters and stuff, because this stuff, every time I've gone to a gig, right, got there with my blurst or my bass balls, because they always move a little bit when you're storing them. Same problem I have with the Empress compressor, or in these more physical knob pedals. They, I mean, all these are physical knobs, but and foot switches, but these aren't. Pretty much, these are what you see is what you get. So when I set something up and I get it perfect, one, I can't save it. Two, I might have to change it if I want to use a different parameter or I want to use a different thing here. And then by the time I do all that, I forgot the setting. Especially because if I had to do that, I have to remember settings for all the pedals. It's the reason why, like, you'll see, if you look at some of the old school pedal boards, they'll have all these little diagrams and stuff on them that the person had drew to, remember the settings and things like that. You don't want to have to do all that. So definitely take some time, think about your setup. Don't just buy pedals because they came out and they look cool. Think about how they fit into your setup. The MXR bass synth, I think, is worth having on the board, even though it's not MIDI. These three, actually, But am I more likely to go to these versus going to the sounds I have programmed in here, which is going to make my life a lot easier? That depends. I really want the sound that I'm trying to get from here. But yeah, those little tips like that are definitely help your rig. Like, you use it live, especially as a bassist. If you get something like this, you want to set up that first page to be your main sounds. Then the second page, you got 12 pages there that you can fill up with presets. So really, that takes some time to think about. So go through your pedals. The way I recommend you do that too, real quick before I get out of here. Go through the pedals, figure out what presets you want. Go through the manuals, figure out what parameters you might want to control, and put the parameters on the CC list, all on in a list, and put the program changes in a list, and see how you want to match things up that way. You'll see it a lot easier, and you won't have to try to remember it while you're trying to program 100 and something sounds presets. So, all right, guys. Hope you guys had a wonderful day. Thank you for spending some time with me. Make sure you hit that like button before you go. And if you haven't already, sign up for Patreon. Check out the presets for all the various pedals. And also check me out on all social media at the Bass Negus. Or Negos. It just depends on how you want to pronounce it. A lot of people can't pronounce that. So I try to help you out. But I definitely appreciate all the love you guys are showing me on all the social media. You guys that have been following me on other platforms. I see a lot of the usual suspects on, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram, and even on TikTok. So thank you guys for all the love and support. And, of course, I'm going to keep this going. But hope these tips and tricks and different things help you out, these examples. And if it does, Cash says Super Chat definitely helps. $1, $2, whatever you want to do. It'll work. All right, folks. I'll catch you later. Peace. Thanks.